Hello, and welcome to the presentation on Chapter 6, Emergency Management and Operations of the International Levee Handbook. I am Yazmin Seda-Sanabria from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the United States. Myself, along with Dr. Enrique Matheu of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, also in the United States, are the co-authors of this chapter of the handbook. In this short presentation, I will try to give you just a flavor of the contents of this chapter by way of an introduction to some of its aspects. Chapter 6 explains the management of levees and the role of the levee managers in flood emergencies. This flowchart shows where to find information in this chapter and how it relates to other chapters within the handbook. You may use this information in combination with the contents of the page to navigate the handbook. This chapter is divided into 10 sections, providing an overview of the emergency management life cycle, which consists of preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. The chapter focuses mostly on preparedness and response, with minor information regarding recovery and mitigation, pointing the reader to other chapters of the handbook for more information on these last two topics. Section 6.1 introduces the principles of emergency management and sets out the scope of Chapter 6. The emergency management life cycle is introduced with details given for the 4 phases of the life cycle. This section also expands on the primary goals of emergency management and their focus on minimizing human impacts and reducing property damages. Section 6.2 presents the actions necessary to be undertaken prior to a flood event. The section describes details on required inputs to support emergency action planning, including understanding of levee failure mechanisms and the elements that drive the associated risks to assist levee managers in their decision-making prior and during a flood event. The section also provides information on flood inundation mapping supporting flood response, evacuation, and security plans to include their maintenance and update. Recommendations on data management during emergency operations to guide and improve response actions are also described as part of this section. Section 6.3 describes those tasks and activities that are necessary to build, sustain, and improve operational capabilities. Details are given related to training and exercises, as well as public awareness. Section 6.4 describes the various roles of levee managers, emergency managers, and responsible officials in their respective areas of responsibility. This section also details actions undertaken as part of preliminary response activities, such as flood response plan activation, inspections, and emergency repairs. It goes to discuss also some of the actions involving full response activities, such as flood fighting actions, communication with local communities, and evacuation plan activation. Lastly, this section also covers post-response activities to enhance emergency response planning and mitigation for future flood events. Section 6.5 introduces the concepts of intervention techniques in light of potential failure mechanisms and other conditions. Details are given related to flood response equipment, supplies, and activities. Recommendations on commonly used emergency response intervention measures to prevent external erosion, internal erosion, and instability in levee systems during incident conditions are described. Section 6.6 presents techniques for intervention in response to external erosion. Details are given related to measures used for levee raising, external erosion mitigation, as well as protective measures to prevent overtopping or overflow of levees. Section 6.7 presents techniques for intervention in response to internal erosion. Details are given related to measures used for reducing infiltration, increasing seepage path, and reducing hydraulic gradient. Section 6.8 presents techniques for intervention in response to instability. Details are given related to measures used for reducing steepness and inclination of slope, reducing uplift pressure, and reducing saturation of the levee. Section 6.9 presents techniques for intervention in response to breaching. Details are given related to the staging of breach development and measures for management of each stage. Section 6.10 presents innovative techniques useful for crest raising. Several representative methodologies are highlighted as part of this section. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope it has given you a flavor of the coverage of Chapter 6 and encourages you to investigate the other chapters of the International Levee Handbook, which each have similar presentations. The complete handbook can be downloaded from the CERIAB website, the link to which is given on the current slide.